Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting and maybe a little bit unsettling.
Yeah, definitely unsettling.
Yeah, so we're going to be kind of dissecting this essay that we found, and it really makes this argument that tech companies are basically running like a con on users.
hmm
And yeah, I mean, you listening right now, like you're the user, you're part of this. So
This is a pretty bold claim this essay is making. We're going to unpack it all.
yeah, it is, and it gets pretty deep, but I think we can learn a lot from it. So let's
Yeah.
let's jump in. So the essay kind of centers around this core argument that we're all living in what the author calls the rot economy.
The rot economy.
Yeah, and like, have you ever just felt like your favorite apps, they keep getting worse, like almost like they're more interested in just making money than actually serving you?
All the time.
Yeah.
Like, it's a feeling I think a lot of us can relate to.
Totally. And that's really what we're talking about today in this rot economy idea. And the author actually does a really good job of connecting this idea to like everyday digital experiences that we all probably deal with.
Yeah, like super concrete examples.
Exactly. It's not just some like abstract theory, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
think about how many times you've been frustrated by a redesigned app that seems to prioritize everything, but what you actually use it for.
Yeah, totally. Like, the Spotify redesign comes to mind for me.
Oh yeah, that was a rough one.
I mean, it went from being this like super clean, easy to use music app to this like cluttered mess that seemed to be pushing videos and podcasts. All of a sudden, it's like, were they trying to be YouTube?
Yeah, it felt very like identity crisis.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly. And like their CEO even said he wanted Spotify to like come alive with like all this diverse content. But honestly, for a lot of music lovers, it felt like a cash grab.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we get it. You want to make money, but why does it have to feel like we, the users, are the ones constantly being manipulated?
Yeah, and the essay calls these out as dark patterns, and I think that's a really great way to put it. Like, there are these subtle design tricks that are specifically meant to like hook you and get you to spend more time and money.
Oh yeah,
And they're everywhere once you start noticing them.
they really are. It's kind of scary.
Like, think about dating apps, right? You get your like best matches hidden behind these paywalls, or even Uber, right? You're just trying to get a ride. All of a sudden, they're pushing you to order food through these like strategically placed banners.
Yeah, or like every website you go to is just like desperate for your email address.
Oh my God, yes, the email hunger.
It's never ending.
It is, and it's another like big red flag for this whole rot economy thing. They're building these massive marketing databases so they can hit us with even more targeted ads, you
Oh,
know?
it's like that's the whole point of it. Yeah, and it's like what's the result? Overflowing inboxes full of spam that even the unsubscribe button can't seem to tame.
Yeah, and you feel powerless.
I honestly, as reading this essay, I really felt seen. Like it put into words this feeling of almost being conned by the technology I use every day.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And what's even more concerning is like the impact this has on the internet as a whole, right? It's not just about like individual annoyance anymore.
Exactly. It's like degrading the internet itself, making it less trustworthy. And like, I think AI is a good example of
Right?
this.
Yeah, everyone's talking about AI these days.
Exactly. But like, the rush to embrace AI without putting any safeguards in place has led to a flood of misinformation, honestly, like a lot of low quality content.
Totally.
Like, it's getting harder to tell what's real and what's fake online. And companies like Google and Microsoft, they're pushing this technology forward without fully thinking through the
It's
consequences.
moving so fast.
It really
Yeah,
is.
so it's like we're not just talking about annoying ads and scammy emails anymore. It's like this rot economy is actually impacting the fabric of the internet itself, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes beyond just AI, too. Think about like algorithms, they're supposed to make our lives easier, but
Yeah.
they're often designed to just keep us glued to our screens, even if it means showing us harmful or manipulative content.
Right.
Like Facebook's a great example. They prioritize time spent on the platform, even if that engagement wasn't healthy for users.
That's a little scary when you think about it.
It is. And this kind of algorithmic manipulation, it just erodes our trust, not just in technology, but in each other. And it even extends to institutions that we used to rely on for accurate information.
Yeah, like who can you trust anymore?
Right. And the essay even points to CNN, a respected news source, right?
Right.
Running ads for websites that are basically pushing shady affiliate marketing schemes.
Oh, wow.
It's like, if even CNN is giving a platform to these questionable actors, who can we rely on for unbiased information?
Yeah, I mean, to see like a trusted news source like CNN promoting potentially scammy sites is definitely unsettling.
Totally. It highlights how
Okay.
easily we can be misled in this digital age.
hmm And this actually connects back to the author's own personal story, which I thought was really interesting. Um, they talk about how their early experiences with technology, especially like being able to connect with people online, were actually really positive.
Hmm.
And it really helped them have what they considered a normal life.
Right.
But now that love for technology is mixed with frustration and even anger
Hmm.
as they see it being used for exploitation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people listening can relate to that feeling.
It's like we see that dark side, but we don't want to admit it?
Yeah, absolutely. But the good thing is the author doesn't just leave us feeling hopeless. They actually offer some really compelling ideas for how we can fight back against this whole rot economy thing.
Okay, so there's hope.
There is. And honestly, I think maybe the most important one is just awareness. Like the more we recognize these patterns, these dark patterns, the constant push for our data, the better equipped we are to actually make informed choices about the tech we use.
So it's about being more mindful, not just like scrolling and clicking without thinking.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual awareness either.
Yeah.
We need to be talking about these issues too, like sharing our experiences with friends, family, colleagues. It all helps raise collective awareness and hopefully sparks a larger conversation about ethics and technology.
Right. It's like the more people that start asking questions and demanding better, the harder it becomes for these companies to ignore us, right?
Exactly. And the author also argues that we need to hold these tech leaders accountable. Like they specifically call out some big names, people like Mark Zuckerberg at Meta, Tim Cook at Apple, Sundar Pichai at Google.
Oh, yeah, the big guys.
Yeah, these are the people shaping the digital world, and
Yeah.
they need to be held responsible for the consequences of their decisions.
So what can we actually do? Like, it's easy to feel kind of powerless against these massive tech giants.
Yeah, I get that. But the author suggests we can use our voices and our choices to put pressure on these companies, like supporting legislation aimed at promoting data privacy, fostering a healthier digital ecosystem. And we can also choose to support companies that align with our values, the ones that prioritize user experience over just maximizing profits.
So it's about taking back some of that power, right?
Mhm.
Making sure technology serves us, not the other way around.
Exactly. And, to really illustrate how deep this rot economy goes, the author uses a very specific example that I think is really interesting, the experience of setting up a cheap Windows laptop.
Okay.
Like, think about the last time you or maybe someone you know had to do that, trying to navigate all those pre-installed apps and bloatware.
It's a nightmare. I can only imagine.
It is, and for millions of people, this is their primary way of accessing the internet. They buy this budget-friendly laptop, all excited about the possibilities, only to be met with this, frustrating, manipulative experience right from the start.
Ugh, that's rough.
The author actually bought one of these laptops and documented the whole process.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it took almost 2 minutes just to reach the setup screen.
Wow.
And then another minute and a half for updates to download, so you're not even using the computer yet, and it's already working against you.
It's like, what are you doing?
Right, and it gets worse. This particular laptop was locked into Windows Home in S mode, which basically forces you to use apps from the Microsoft Store.
Oh, wow.
And it limits your choices. It's all about keeping you trapped in their ecosystem, controlling your digital experience.
So it's not just a slow computer. It's like a loss of control.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
this is where this rot economy becomes really insidious because it preys on people who may not have the resources or the technical knowledge to navigate all these complexities.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to use a computer, but the system is designed to exploit them at every turn.
Right.
Like, the author highlights how this particular laptop was bombarded with ads and unwanted software, like even something as simple as opening MSN.com through a barrage of ads at you.
It's just like, give me a break.
Yeah, and it paints a pretty bleak picture of what the internet experience is like for a lot of people.
It does.
But the author makes a really important point. This isn't just some isolated incident. This is a symptom of a larger problem. Laptop sales have been declining. So manufacturers and software companies are desperate for new revenue streams.
Mm-hmm.
They've turned the user experience into a profit center, bombarding people with ads, pushing them towards paid services.
It's like the computer itself has become a tool of the rot economy.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And this extends beyond laptops, of course. The author argues that the entire digital ecosystem, from social media platforms to news websites, is infected by this relentless drive for growth. And it's this growth at all costs that's led to what some people call the enshittification of the internet.
Enshittification, that's a pretty strong word.
It is. And it basically describes how platforms start out offering a great user experience to attract people. Then once they have that large user base, they start degrading that experience to benefit their business clients, and eventually they're exploiting both users and clients to maximize profits.
Oh, wow. So it's like this whole cycle.
Yeah, it plays out again and again, and the rot economy is the driving force behind that whole process.
Okay, so the insatiable hunger for growth is what pushes companies down that path of exploitation and shitification is just one symptom of this much larger systemic problem.
Exactly. And this growth imperative, the author argues, has its roots in a particular way of thinking about business and economics that prioritizes shareholder value above everything else.
Right.
Like the idea that corporations should be free to pursue profit without considering the social consequences.
Yeah, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we buy into this myth of endless growth, the more we empower these systems that exploit us.
It's a vicious cycle, and the consequences go way beyond just annoying app updates and intrusive ads. Like, remember all that talk about AI-generated content?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the rush to embrace AI without proper safeguards or ethical considerations has flooded the internet with misinformation and basically distorted reality.
Right. It's like we opened Pandora's box and now we're struggling to contain the consequences.
That's a great analogy, and it really highlights this short-term thinking that's so prevalent in the rot economy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, companies are so focused on immediate gains, on capturing market share and boosting engagement metrics, that they fail to consider the long-term implications of their actions.
And it's us, the users, who are left to deal with those consequences.
Exactly. We're trying to navigate this digital world that feels increasingly hostile, manipulative, and lacking in genuine human connection.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
It is, and the author argues that we've become so accustomed to this state of affairs that we've normalized the unacceptable. We just accept intrusive notifications, tolerate data breaches, and resign ourselves to being bombarded with targeted advertising. We've lost sight of what a truly healthy digital ecosystem could look like.
That's a scary thought.
It is. It's almost like a collective Stockholm syndrome where we've come to identify with our captors.
Wow, that's deep.
But the author doesn't leave us there. They believe that by raising awareness, having these critical conversations, and holding tech leaders accountable, we can start to push back against this rot economy.
So it's not a hopeless situation.
Not at all. It won't be easy. But the author sees potential for positive change. They urge readers to recognize their own agency, to make conscious choices about the technology they use, and to advocate for a digital world that prioritizes human well-being over corporate profit.
Right.
It's a call to action that I think resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. It's about reclaiming some of that power and control that we've surrendered to these tech giants.
Exactly. And, before we wrap up this part, I wanted to touch on something the author said about algorithms, because it's easy to get caught up in this idea that algorithms are either good or bad.
Right.
But the author suggests we need to move beyond that simplistic understanding.
Okay, so how should we think about algorithms?
Well, algorithms at their core are just tools. They can be used for good or for ill, depending on the intentions of the people who create and deploy them.
So it's not about demonizing algorithms themselves, but about understanding how they're being used and holding the people behind them accountable.
Exactly, like the author uses the example of Facebook's algorithm, which, as we mentioned, was designed to prioritize time spent on the platform, even if that engagement was detrimental to users' well-being. That wasn't an inherent flaw in the algorithm. That was a deliberate choice made by the people who designed it.
Right. So it's those choices, those decisions made in the pursuit of growth and profit that we need to challenge.
Absolutely. And by understanding the nuances of how algorithms work and how they can be manipulated, we can start demanding more transparency and accountability from the tech companies that have so much influence over our digital lives.
It's like lifting the curtain and seeing the wizard behind the machine, so to speak.
Exactly. And once we see the wizard, we can start demanding better.
It's like we need to become more tech savvy, but not just in terms of using the latest gadgets, but like really understanding how these systems work and how they can be used to like influence our behavior.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial point. We need to develop a kind of digital literacy that allows us to see through the manipulation and make informed choices about how we engage with technology.
So what does that look like in practice? Like, how can we actually become more digitally literate?
Well, I think it starts with questioning what we see online. Don't just accept everything at face value. Consider the source, look for evidence, and be wary of information that seems designed to provoke strong emotions or push a particular agenda.
So it's about thinking critically and not letting ourselves be swept away by the tide of information overload.
Exactly. And it's also about diversifying our sources of information. Don't rely on just one platform or one news outlet. Seek out different perspectives, challenge your own assumptions, and be open to changing your mind when presented with new evidence.
It's about being an active participant in shaping our own understanding of the world, not just passively consuming whatever's put in front of us.
I think that's a great way to put it. We need to be more proactive in curating our digital diets, choosing to engage with content that's informative, enriching, and aligned with our values.
And maybe even a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, like challenging ourselves to see things from different angles.
Absolutely. Growth often happens outside of our comfort zones,
Mhm.
and a healthy digital ecosystem needs diverse voices and perspectives to thrive.
It's interesting how the author contrasts this rot economy with another idea we touched on earlier, Cory Doctorow's enshittification theory. Can you remind us what that was all about and how it fits into this bigger picture?
Sure, so Dr. Wu argues that many online platforms start by offering a great experience to attract users, but then they gradually make things worse. They inshitify the experience to benefit their business clients and maximize profits.
Right. And you said earlier that this rot economy is like the driving force behind that whole process.
Exactly. The author sees the rot economy, this relentless pursuit of growth, as the root cause of enshittification. It's this belief that more is always better, no matter the cost, that leads companies down this path of exploiting both users and clients.
So it's not just that platforms become bad over time, but the very foundation of the tech industry is built on this unsustainable model.
Exactly. And this growth at all costs mindset is deeply embedded in our economic system.
Yeah.
It's the same thinking that leads to environmental destruction and social inequality. It's about prioritizing short-term profits over long-term sustainability and well-being.
So this rot economy is a symptom of a much larger problem.
I think so. It's a reflection of our values as a society, and it's going to take a collective effort to shift those values and create a more ethical and sustainable future, both online and offline.
We've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored this concept of the rot economy, how it impacts our digital lives, and how it's connected to these bigger issues of economic inequality and the erosion of trust. It's a lot to process.
It is, but I think the key takeaway here is that we're not powerless. We can make choices about how we engage with technology. We can demand better from the companies that control so much of our digital lives, and we can work towards creating more equitable and humane digital future.
It's about reclaiming our agency in a world that often feels designed to take it away.
Exactly. And I think the author leaves us with a really powerful image to keep in mind. They talk about being sandpaper in the veins of the rot economy, being a constant irritant, a force for disruption and change.
I love that image.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even small acts of resistance can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely. It's about speaking out, raising awareness, supporting ethical companies, and holding tech leaders accountable. It's about being mindful of our own digital habits and choosing to engage with technology in ways that align with our values. It's about recognizing that we have a role to play in shaping the digital world we want to live in.
That's a great message to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep questioning everything.
Yeah.